Okay, Lord's Day 40 deals with the the sixth commandment, which is, of course, you shall not kill or you shall not murder. And it does so with three questions and answers, beginning with question 105. What is God's will for you in the sixth commandment? And the answer is, I am not to belittle, insult, hate, or kill my neighbor, not by my thoughts, my words, my look or gesture, and certainly not by actual deeds. And I am not to be party to this in others. Rather, I am to put away all desire for revenge. I am not to harm or recklessly endanger myself either. Prevention of murder is also why the government is armed with the sword. Then question 106. Does this commandment refer only to killing? And the answer is, by forbidding murder, God teaches us that he hates the root of murder, envy, hatred, anger, vindictiveness. In God's sight, all such are murder. And then question 107, is it enough then that we do not kill our neighbor in any such way? And it answers no. By condemning envy, hatred, and anger, God tells us to love our neighbors as ourselves, to be patient, peace-loving, gentle, merciful, and friendly to them, to protect them from harm as much as we can, and to do good even to our enemies. All right, three quick things from Lord's Day 40 related to the sixth commandment. The first of them is that obviously the commandment is being interpreted very comprehensively and broadly. And this is in line with what we've already talked about with regard to the commandments, particularly in the second table of the law, commandments 5 through 10, that the specific commandment is like the chief example of an aspect of this area of life. And so this has to do with our treatment of other human beings. And so the most egregious breach of what God wants us to do is to actually murder them. But there are so many other things that go along with that, as the Catechism discusses here. And so you might say a summary of the commandment then is related to not doing any harm to another human being, nor desiring to do harm to them. Because it's not just the actions, it's the thoughts and attitudes and that kind of thing. That's the first quick thing. The second quick thing is that it makes the point that it's not enough to think about this in terms of a restriction on our actions, but we need to do the opposite. So rather than be motivated by this kind of hatred for our neighbor, we need to be motivated out of love, to love our neighbor as ourselves. And part of that love, along with being friendly and peace-loving and patient and merciful and that kind of thing, is protection. So not only do we not take any actions of words or thoughts or particular, actual actions toward harming them, we are instructed to protect them. And that leads then to the third quick thing, which is that it makes the point that the prevention of murder is why the government is armed with a sword. Now, that sword that is given to civil government by God, this was after the flood, and as you know, prior to the flood, the world was filled with violence, and that was one of the reasons that God brought about the flood and did away with all except Noah and his family. After the flood, then, civil government was instituted and given the sword in order to, among other things, restrain that wickedness. Now, part of that is to restrain or prevent murder through the threat of punishment, and that's what the sword is, the threat of punishment for those who would murder another human being, which would be that they would then be put to death by the civil government. Another aspect of that, though, is the civil government being the defender of the people against the aggression of other nations. And so you have both sort of the policing powers of the government related to society and the protection of the innocent in society, but you also have then the sort of the military powers of government in mind here, that the government has given the sword in order to defend human life. Now, somebody has to hold that sword, right? I mean, it's not just a figurative sword in that day. So if we were to say it in today's terms, the government has been issued, the M16 or whatever to protect the innocent, to prevent murder. So human beings need to be the ones holding these weapons to do this work of preventing murder. So when it comes to the civil government with regard to restraining wickedness within society, that action of using the sword to prevent murder or to mete out justice on those who murder is not then in itself a breach of this commandment. In other words, the commandment is do not murder. So capital punishment is not murder, because capital punishment is the state using the sword that it was given for the prevention of murder, and capital punishment would then be part of that work of the civil government in restraining and preventing further murders, whether from that individual or other individuals who would think twice about that. But that also relates then to the military powers of the government, and why the church, the vast majority of the church, has viewed the taking up of arms in response to the call of civil government to protect fellow citizens as not being a breach of this commandment either. So it's a couple of things that you need to be holding at the same time here. So it's a strict prohibition against bringing any harm to another individual, but at the same time, the civil government is given the sword to prevent such things. So there are ways in which the sword is to be used rightfully to prevent that, and there are ways that the sword is used wrongfully. So those dynamics all need to be understood together with regard to this commandment, and the Catechism is touching on each of those aspects all the way through when you stop and look a little bit more deeply. So that wasn't terribly quick, but it's an important topic, and so those are three things from Lord's Day 40 and the Sixth Commandment.